All right, welcome to adding integers with counters. Before we get started, let's have a science joke. Why did the electron not get drafted to the NBA? Ready for it? Because it wasn't a proton. All right, it's kind of relevant, you'll see. Before we get started with some vocabulary, let's think of three scenarios. A duck descends, that means it's going down, 8 feet, and then ascends, that means it's going up, another 8 feet. Where does the duck end up? It ends up at 0 feet, right at the surface of the water. If you have one proton, that's a positively charged, and one electron, they combine for a net charge of 0. You don't know that yet, we'll study it in a couple weeks. All right, and then if you owe, that's a negative $5, so negative 5, and then you pay that $5 right back, you're going to end up with $0. You don't owe anybody any money, you don't have more money, but you're ending up at 0. So when we have a positive and a negative, they combine to make 0. And so we can think about these things as a 0 pair. A 0 pair is one positive and one negative. One positive and one negative, they combine to make 0. We can go even further when we're in 7th grade or 8th grade. We can talk about additive inverses. Additive inverses, if we break down this term, we're talking about the addition of inverses or opposites. Additive inverses are two numbers that when we add them together, they combine to make 0. So we can define additive inverses as two numbers that combine, and because we're fancy, let's use the correct mathematical vocabulary for that, the combine or sum to 0. For example, 8 and negative 8 are 0. Add them together, we get 0. They are additive inverses. All right, so let's go ahead and do some addition. And for addition this time, we are going to use the counter model. Just like the number line model, the counter model is a way that we can show what's happening when we're adding integers. Some people like the counter model better. Some people like the number line model better. And for different problems, one might suit you. But let's learn them both so they're in our toolkit. We're going to start out with a problem from way back when, probably 1st grade. When you did a problem like 5 plus 4, you probably started out by taking counters and then putting them together and counting it. For this problem, we're going to use a yellow pencil. If you have two colored pencils with you, yellow and red is great because they'll match what we have at school, but 2 other colors is fine as long as you're consistent. We're going to use yellow to represent positive numbers. So 5 plus 4 is 2 positives. I'm going to do stuff with this yellow. Let's start out with 5 to go along with our first addend. Here's 5 counters. You can draw them. And since we're fancy and in middle school, we're going to add a positive sign to them so that we can show they're positives. 5 is the first addend. I'm combining that with 4 as the second addend. There's 4 positives. And to find the sum, all we need to do is count these up, and of course, there are 9. Super easy, but when you get to middle school, things get more complicated. So instead of 5 plus 4, we've got 9 plus negative 5. Now we've got some negatives to deal with. That's okay. Let's start it out the same way we did the last one. 9 plus negative 5, the first addend is 9, so I'm going to put 9 positive counters. Here's 6, 7, 8, 9. Just double check that. Okay, and I'm going to put a plus sign in them just so it's super clear that these are positives. Because now we're adding 5 negatives to that. So my next addend is negative 5. Here's 5 negatives. I'm using red for the negatives because they're different. This is a different number. 5 negatives. Okay, now here's the best part. Because we've got a positive and a negative, that's a 0 pair. They cancel each other out, just like borrowing $1 and then paying it right back. And here's another zero pair. In fact, all of these are zero pairs. They cancel each other out. What we have left is 4 positives. So the sum is positive 4. Okay, let's try another one. Negative 6 plus 9. This time, we're starting with a negative, but our process is the same. I'm going to draw 6 negatives with my red pencil, putting a negative in each one. And now I'm combining that with 9 positives using my yellow pencil. If you didn't have colored pencils, you could do this just with a regular pencil, but it would not look as pretty. Okay, now that we've got our negative 6 and our positive 9, we're going to cancel out the zero pairs. Here's 1 zero pair. Here's a bunch more zero pairs. And maybe you're seeing a pattern here on how you could do this without drawing it, and that's great if you do. What we have left are 3 positives, so our sum is 3. Okay, let's do one more together before you try some practice on your own. This time, we're adding 2 negative numbers together. If you're not sure what to do, that's totally fine. Let's do it the same way we've been doing the others. I'm going to start by drawing, for our first addend, 5 negatives. And now I'm going to draw 7 negatives for our second addend. And because you're like totally in the flow and you're so into crossing things out, you might be tempted to start crossing out here. But realize these are not additive inverses. They are not zero pairs. These do not cancel each other out. It's just like combining 5 and 7. We're going to end up with more positives. Combining negative 5 and negative 7 just means we've got more negative stuff together. So these together make 12, which is negative because it's a negative sign remaining. Okay, it's now time to practice some on your own. So go ahead and work these 6 problems out, answer the quiz questions, and then when you're finished and have checked off your work, use the remaining part of the video to follow along with me on any problems where you struggle. Okay, let's get started. First problem, negative 6 plus negative 3. Got negative 6, so I'm going to draw 6 negatives. And 3 negatives. And since I have no zero pairs here, this is going to find a sum of negative 9. Nothing to cancel out. Okay, number 2, 12 plus 5. Even though you might be able to do this problem without drawing it out, I'm going to draw it out for you. Okay, that should be 12. Yes, and 12 plus 5, 17. All right, let's do number 3. Okay, negative 8 plus 6. We're going to start out with 8 negatives. We're adding 6 positives. Good. I was worried we weren't going to get to cancel anything out. I do have some zero pairs here. What I have left are 2 negatives, negative 2. Okay, problem like this, hopefully you're looking at it and you're seeing 7 plus negative 7. Those are additive inverses, in which case pat yourself on the back. That's awesome. Let's draw it out so we make sure we understand what this sums to and why. So we've got 7 positives. And we've got 7 negatives. And because we have an equal number of positives and negatives, cancel each other out, and you're not left with anything at all. So the sum is 0. For number 5, you might look at that and say, oh, I got it. They're additive inverses. It's 0, in which case we tricked you because these are not additive inverses. Draw it out and you'll see. This is negative 5 plus negative 5. There's nothing to cancel here. So the sum is 10 negatives. Okay, last problem. 3 add-ins still can draw it out and do the exact same process. Okay, so start with 3 positives. Next add-in is 8 negatives. And then 5 more negatives. I have 0 pair here, here, and here. And what I have left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ta-da! There you have it. Adding integers with counters.